Well, I came back after a short vacation and I found several comments on my videos. Thank you very much. It's actually pretty encouraging to see people commenting, asking questions. So please continue. My excursion from the project involved a couple of things. I got frustrated with myself because I did not know very much about Adobe Illustrator. So I decided to subscribe to lynda.com. That's lynda.com. And if you're not familiar with that website, they have tons of professional videos on Adobe Illustrator, everything, Photoshop, development. And the prices are not too bad. I'm not trying to pitch anything here really, but developing a game requires a lot of different resources. And if you're doing it by yourself, you need to gain the knowledge for a lot of different tools. I've been pretty familiar with Photoshop and Illustrator, not sufficient to actually design something, but I could open a file, do some manipulation, and save it back out. And that was the extent of my skills. So I decided I need to go learn this tool so I can stop fumbling around and really know what it does. So I went through 2 or 3 courses on lynda.com and really improved my skills a lot with Illustrator. And there's some more resources that you should have at your disposal for game development. Another one would be basically the entire Adobe Creative Cloud suite. It's like, I think the educational version that I have is $29 a month. So if you have a high school student, which is what I have a son in high school, or a college student, or maybe you yourself are enrolled in some courses, you can get the educational price from Adobe, which is a sweet deal at $29 a month. I remember back in the day when Illustrator alone or the Creative Suite was $1,600, and there's no way that I could afford that even as a software engineer back in the day. I'm still a software engineer. I could afford that, but there's no way I would justify $1,600 at one time for one program. Well, actually, maybe a suite of programs. I think Illustrator by itself was $700. So that's a pretty steep price just to... And I'm not an artist, so I couldn't really make money at Illustrator or illustrating. So I still depend on people who have skills in that department to create the graphics that I use, and which I'm going to show you right now, actually. So when we conceived of this idea for this game called Cracking Words, a friend of mine approached me. Her name is Lynda, ironically. No association with that website. And she said, "Mark, I had this neat idea." She knew that I was involved in making games for kids. My passion is for making tablet-based games for kids that don't annoy or advertise or begging for money like so many apps do. I think it's inappropriate to market to 3-year-olds. So I decided a long time ago I wanted to pursue this objective of building games for 3-year-olds for tablets that just cost 99 cents or $1.99, and there's no more begging, no more advertisements popping up, etc. So this game represents a little excursion from that concept. It's actually a game for adults or older people, anybody who can read. It's not a toddler game. So the basic idea is you have a board of letters that are scrambled. And you have a position, you have 3 or 4 boxes, 5, depending on how big the word is that you're trying to solve. And then you have a description of the word right here. So this could be a definition or a pseudo definition, like just a description. In this example, a male human being. That may not be the actual definition for the word man, but it's a description. So sometimes the descriptions or the definitions can be tricky. So the user would then just press the letters M, A, N, and to complete that word. And this goes on and on through the levels, each level progressing in difficulty with the the obscurity. Really, obscurity is the key here of the words, because I have a dictionary that's probably 8 inches thick that represents thousands and thousands of words that we do not use anymore in today's lingo. So they're good candidates for difficult words, because whoever uses the word xylophone in their daily conversation. So imagine seeing the description for xylophone here and not knowing how to spell that word, or not remembering how to spell that word. You may have heard it once in your life. So it's a challenge. So this is the original design. We used rough designs so that I, as the programmer, can then conceptualize what she's trying to do, and as the game designer, as her role as the game designer in this case, and my role as the programmer to implement her vision. So you want to start off with some rough graphics. Some people call this programmer art, but in this case the programmer didn't generate it. So we start off with this called a rough sketch, of sorts. You could actually do this on paper. A lot of game designers will create their initial prototypes on paper to do testing. And then we progressed to phase 2, which is blue background. She started dabbling with color schemes. There's some websites out there, Color Lovers, with the English spelling, COLOUR, lovers.com. They have a lot of color schemes that are trending through the web right now, or currently, and you can get a complete palette that you can use in Illustrator to create your website or your game, because you want colors that complement or contrast. You don't want colors that are just really obnoxious together. Obnoxious together would be dark red and dark black, or black and dark red. You couldn't hardly even see that, so that would be a bad idea. So she came up with version 2, and we had some problems with the layout. In this example, you see I have there's a tool, there's a technique that you can use if you ever developed a responsive website to size things for your mobile device, because all these mobile devices have different dimensions. So you want to make sure things lay out correctly. Well, you can see here, when my original design is for an iPhone, this size right here is an iPhone screen size. But then when I displayed it on, I forgot what it was, I was targeting at this one, 480 by 320. You can see at the bottom footer, actually right here in this blank space would be where the advertisement goes. But when I expanded this out to a larger or taller device, this footer was just not working. It would float all over the place, and the buttons didn't look very good. The rest of the screen looks pretty good, but we couldn't figure out a great design for the button scheme. So she said, Mark, I'm gonna spend some time with this and redo it, and that was the time period where I didn't have any updates in my channel. I intended to do updates daily. That's why the channel's name is called Game Dev Daily. Well, what a letdown. I didn't do daily updates. So I'll try to rectify that. But here's her latest and greatest, which I like this a lot better because she got rid of this blue footer. The buttons are still there, but now they're the same size and they're square, rounded rectangles. They look decent. The gradient in the background is a linear gradient going left to right. I am going to change that to a radial, so it goes from center outwards. That just makes more sense to me. And some of these other elements may or may not work because I'm concerned about the score box being too small. In this version, the score box is better. It's bigger. So that might take some tweaking. This is the timer box. This timer will drain down. The little clock might move, might not. So that's the general game screen. We have a leaderboard planned out. We have level selection, Angry Bird style. That seems to be the standard these days with these type of games, where and the reason why we have standards is so that a user does not have to relearn an interface. You want the user to be engaged in the game, not engaged in what the hell do I do with this user interface. So that's why you'll have someone like Angry Birds come along and redefine the user interface standards, and then everyone starts to, we could say, mock them. But there's a reason for that, because like I said, you don't want to reinvent user interfaces if you don't have to. Because our game, your job as a game designer is not to keep people on this level screen as long as possible. Your game is to get them from this screen into the game as quickly as possible. So if you can use someone else's paradigm, such as the Angry Birds paradigm, then that's perfect. Just, go with what's familiar, get your users back into the game, and don't annoy them. Rule number one, don't annoy your users. Because if you annoy them, you're only one button push away from being out of there. Because the home screen is, the home button on an iPhone or Android phone is a lot closer to your thumb than the buttons on this screen. So keep that in mind, that it's a lot faster for a user to bail out of your application if they get annoyed than it is to figure it out. Well, I think that's about all for now. I'm almost at my time limit. So thank you for watching, and comment. Tell me how I did, and tell me what you'd like to see next. Thank you very much.